we're going to be bringing in AI as a co-pilot, as a GPT model or something of that nature into the business. It's going to be a human AI partnership. What does that mean for you? Let's start educating people around prompt engineering skills. So do you have a prompt engineering program that's educating your employees around, or that your employees can enroll on, to ensure they build the necessary skills to understand how they best prompt an AI model to get the output that is desirable for them, that they can use in the workplace?
Greetings. It's exciting to be back, bringing to you exciting discussion around data and AI. My name is Themba, and I am your host. My passion really is bringing to you insights around data analytics, around how you can leverage insights to drive decision making in your business. We're currently on a journey of expanding our business into 15 African countries by 2030. So we shall slack in there. Today I'm sitting with Devaan, who's the head of digital HR at Santam. Devaan, welcome.
Thank you so much, Themba.
Thank you so much, man, for making the time to connect with us. This is a very interesting space that you are in. The people space. I really believe that without the people, there's no business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We just have furniture, we just have desks, we just have computers, we just have all these things. And I really believe that one of the, interesting activities, exercises, is to make sure that we get the best out of our people. Today, I want to chat to you around how can data help us achieve that, right? But before we get to it, I want to invite you to introduce yourself to our audience the best way you know how. From when you were crawling, you can maybe share with us at what age you started walking. Go for it.
Great. Thank you so much. So as Themba mentioned, my name is Devaan. I've been with Santam now for about 5 years. Prior to that, spent some time in banking in the First Rand group.
Okay.
Prior to that, Discovery. I worked in the people function there as well. So looking after the entire business, not just health or insure.
Okay.
And prior to that, it was what I refer to as the training ground for corporates. I worked at Edcon.
Nice. Okay.
Met many of my friends that I still keep in contact with today.
Nice.
At Edcon. And then spent some time in and amongst my career. I spent some time in one or two startups. One was a clothing line business that failed dismally.
I can understand.
Another one.
Listen, you're not the only one. Most of us have got those stories,
Yeah. And I think those are great stories, right? Because it's in learning how to fail that helps you to get up.
100%.
And you take those lessons not just in your workplace, but you take it through life.
Yes.
And I think that's important.
No, 100%. I don't think you can separate the two. You can't separate what you learn from business, and think you can't use it in your personal, space as well. Because, it's inseparable, if I can put it like that. What you are learning in your business is exactly what shapes you as a person, what develops you to become the next best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm almost tempted to ask you what happened at Edcon or to Edcon, but let's not go there.
That's fine.
So you are in the data space.
Yes.
What does data mean to you? What does this data space mean to you?
So I like to look at data as, wealth of an organization.
Mm-hmm. Wealth of an organization. I love that.
The wealth of an organization.
Data as wealth of an shucks. That sounds great for a book title.
Yeah.
Maybe I might just steal that one.
As long as I'm a co-author.
I'll just acknowledge you there. Thanks to Devaan for the idea. Okay, but I love that, honestly.
Yeah.
Data is wealth for an organization. Yeah. Okay.
So we've been collecting data for years, right? Santam is 106 years old as of May 1st, 106 years old. And if you think about it, right, whether it's kept in a ledger or whether it's kept in a data warehouse or whether it's kept in an Excel spreadsheet, the data is collected, right? More so nowadays on our machines. It's either kept locally on our laptops or it's kept in a 365 cloud account or in a Google One account. The data is just stored and we create more and more and more as we go along, right? And that's why I feel and I believe that data is the wealth of an organization, because what you do on a day-to-day basis, a minute-by-minute basis, creates information that helps people understand how productive they are,
Yes.
how best they're making use of their time, but also how best they are contributing to the overall organization's success. And I think what's critically important from a human capital point of view is that we understand the nature around how our people use their time to contribute to the organization's objectives.
I love that.
And I think that's where most organizations are missing it, I feel. I know for Santam, we're struggling at the moment in unpacking that, and we've put together frameworks in understanding exactly how best we can solve for it.
Okay.
Not necessarily just in productivity and efficiency, but it's an understanding how to best make use of your day-to-day responsibilities to ensure that you deliver value for the organization.
Getting the best out of your people, getting the best out of your resources, getting the best out of your time and investments and all those type of things. I love that so much. For the businesses which haven't realized that data is wealth, how can they start realizing that? And it's that concept of Africa, where possibly people haven't realized the gold that they're sitting with, the gold mine that they're sitting with, whatever the case might be. Politics and socio-economic experts, another discussion for another day. But thinking about it, it sounds to me like that. To say, how do we as African people start realizing what Africa is, the potential of Africa? It seems as if I'm not in New York, I haven't made it. It seems as if for me to be successful, I must say I've relocated to New York. I can't relocate to Egypt. I can't relocate to Morocco and say I can actually thrive in there, And I think that wealth perspective which you're talking about in here, let's bring it back to data. How can an organization realize the wealth that they're sitting on when it comes to this data they have?
So I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think we really need to take a step back, and I'm going to speak from my own personal experience.
100%. Right? That's perfect.
I think we need to take a step back and look at how we perform work.
How work is done.
How work is done. How work is designed, and what processes we undergo in order to deliver the work. So let me break that down. I believe it starts with understanding the process. Right? So if I wake up in the morning and I need to process a claim, as an example. So I get to work and switch my PC on, I need to process a claim. What steps do I need to follow in order to process the claim? Is there rework involved? Is there distribution of the claim to an alternate party that needs to analyze, maybe underwriting or something of that nature? And then from there go to an approver, right? It's understanding who plays what role in the process and understanding where the process fails.
Ish, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And if we understand data, if we understand what information gets created at which point in the process, we'll then begin to understand exactly what we need to remove. I think it's Tom Wells that talks about the 7 forms of waste. We'll begin to understand that if we understand the steps of a process, then we'll understand what data gets created where. We'll understand who plays what role in the process.
Okay.
And we'll begin to understand what we can remove for automation's sake, right? Because once we are able to better understand what we can remove for the sake of automation, we begin to understand exactly how we can shape the job. Because you can't automate and keep the same job. Right? You can't automate and keep the same responsibilities.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
And if you are doing that, I'd like to challenge you to change what you're doing. I'd like to challenge your thought process around your job design. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. I say that quite often whenever I'm involved in these design workshops. Like, what are we changing?
What are we changing?
Are we doing more of the same? When we look at our data and we say, okay, fine, if this is what Devaan is doing and the process is now being automated, what is Devaan going to do after that? And if he does more of the same, are we really doing anything different? Are we spending money in the right ways? I'd like to almost challenge ourselves to think of it differently.
100%. Let's bring this back now to your space. Let's bring it back to the HR space and stuff. And I'm interested in finding out if you can share with us how are you using data, to enhance HR efficiencies in your own space or in your organization?
Yeah, great question. So what we've done first and foremost, we put a framework together, right, to say, there's the data visualization aspect, which generally we want to get to very quickly. But we can't do that unless we've managed our data, unless we've engineered our data, right? And then we look at the data technologies and we look at the people and change aspect. So there's a framework, what we're calling our data strategy that we've got. And we're using that to understand in our people and change work stream, what does this mean for learning and development? What does this mean for organizational effectiveness? What does it mean for talent acquisition and recruitment? What does this mean for the talent management portfolio? And then what does this also mean for our HR delivery team, the tipping point of the spear, so to speak, right? And it's in those different verticals that we are analyzing what tasks need to be performed. And in unpacking that, we've identified 418 tasks. Right.
Sure.
Sorry, not tasks, 418 processes. There are many tasks in the process.
Yes.
Naturally. So in these 418, we've then sort of isolated 57, and we said over the next 2 years, we're going to focus on improving 57 of these processes. So we've put together, within those 57 processes, we've now put together a framework for reporting around these are the reports that go alongside these processes. And it's in these reports that we've begun to understand, just where our inefficiencies lie. Right? We have people, for instance, and I'm sure this is in many of our organizations, we've got people pushing an execute button for a process to run. Right? And that execute button could mean an email. That execute button could mean, Devaan, please send me this report, and then I'm going to send it to someone else. It could mean send me this headcount report, and then one of our data scientists looks at that and starts manipulating the information to say, okay, fine, now it's in a clean format that I can use to pivot. We've got that all the way through 57, just the slice of the cake.
100%, I get you.
So we're unpacking. So as part of our engineering of these 57 processes, we're identifying where the inefficiencies lie. Right. And now that we've identified the inefficiencies, we are starting to remove what we've identified as the waste. What we've identified is just the bloating of me sending an email to you, you sending it back to me. And in doing that, we aren't able to structure our information. And that's where I feel human capital struggles, or HR struggles, right? We struggle because the information is not stored in a structured data warehouse or data repository. It's all stuck on our laptops, or it's in phone calls. And what we've actively sought to do over the last 8 months is, off the back of our data strategy, off the back of our reporting framework, and off the back of this, what I call a heat map of our 418, we've now identified across our process map just where our data helps us be efficient and where our data is, further reinforcing the inefficiencies that we've got.
Okay.
So I'm going to pause there.
Okay, it sounds to me like you're on this journey, which sounds exciting. I don't know if it is. But the question I want to ask you is, what challenges did you have to deal with, did you have to overcome from when you started that journey to where you are right now?
So our struggle has been around bringing people along the journey. Right. So the project was registered. The budget was set aside.
Okay.
But then our people started exhibiting these fear sort of driven motives. Right. So I then dug into some research as far as just why people respond from a fear basis whenever we brought change about. And I began to understand that fear is the natural human response to any change. That was our biggest hurdle, right? In helping people understand that we're making these changes to ensure that you still remain relevant not at Santam, but your next company that you move to. Right, so that was one of those, if I can call it, our biggest change. Right, so what I did was I put together a change management program which involved creating a newsletter internally.
Okay.
And as part of this newsletter, it's helping people understand that, when we exhibit fear, there's oftentimes a trigger that's taken place in our past, or we've triggered an event in our past, and it's showing up in the workplace, but oftentimes it's something that happened in our childhood. So the change management process is quite structured. The newsletter is one asset. From there, it's quarterly sort of town hall that we have, and what we call HR collaboration sessions as well.
Yeah,
we've put those in place. So that's one of the hurdles. The other hurdle was our data engineering.
Okay.
Right. So that was it's a big challenge because we've recruited data scientists, but we haven't recruited data engineers. Right. So for me, and when I realized that, we're starting to have conversations now about, okay, fine. So we've got our data scientists, that's fine. We can't pervert the skill set of a data scientist by asking them to engineer data because there's two different skill sets. So across our capability that we're strengthening now is around data engineering and data management. So that's the second biggest hurdle.
Okay.
The third hurdle is access to data.
Access to data.
Access, right? So is
it because we're not in the right systems? Is it? Or what could be the? Are you talking about quality data, the right data, accurate data?
So what I'm referring to is in human resources, we've got your human capital management system. So at Santam, we've got success factors. Okay. But you might, like some organizations might have Oracle, you might have Workday. A few friends of mine have Workday in their organizations. So it's the usage and utilization of each module. So recruitment, or the usage around performance, the usage around leave, sick leave. We're putting together a one view of the employee, right? And that gives us a view as far as what the engagement of this employee is, or the engagement of the group of employees, movement, how much we're investing in from a learning and development point of view.
Okay.
So we're putting together a one view of the employee, right, which really cuts across not only from headcount and where Devaan fits into the organization, but also looking at performance, engagement, learning and development, study aid. If we've invested in Devaan for maybe his MBA or something of that nature. And from there to career mobility, right? So what is his career ambition? What does he believe he wants to achieve one day in the organization? And, what moves has he made thus far?
Yes.
And, what secondments and stuff are coming up, right? We believe that in putting together this one view of the employee, we're able to then merge that data set with an AI application. Maybe it's generative AI or some other form of artificial intelligence, because it's not just Gen AI and that's it, right? There's from narrow to super intelligence, right? If you look at the AI maturity sort of spectrum. So just looking at how we want to leverage generative AI is to build recommendation models to recommend to Devaan or to the line manager, activities. Let's start off with the line manager, right? Recommend activities to the line manager around how, if Devaan's engagement is currently sitting at maybe a 60%, and I want to get that up to 80%, because we want to impact his probability of retention,
yes.
Lack of retention. What can I do to increase Devaan's retention?
I love
use that AI model based on the trained data set to recommend 3 ideas around how I can improve Devaan's engagement. And maybe it is simple as, have a one-on-one every week as opposed to once a month.
Yes.
Could be an example of that nature.
No,
right?
100%.
And then from there, career mobility opportunities. How can I add enrichment to Devaan's job if one of the data points in the engagement survey is Devaan feels there's no opportunities or lack of opportunities to develop himself. And, so attending a course might be one. but job enrichment opportunities, right? So second Devaan into a role or second him into a project team for a period of 6 months or 3 months. So we're looking at utilizing that single view of the employee, which is a very structured data set, partnering that with an AI model to help the line manager, but then also the employee along their career journey in the organization.
That's a very good answer. I love it so much. And I mean, I can relate to what you're saying in here. It speaks to, because I've got a follow-up question for you regarding, AI, but I feel like what you've just said right now covers it quite nicely. Because I was going to ask you, how can AI augment human capabilities rather than replace them? And I think what you've just said now actually gives us a practical example of how to achieve that. But do you have anything else that you'd like to add with regards to that?
I love the question around just and once again, right, I want to bring it back to fear, right? If you think about it, it's if we start thinking that the calculator would have replaced accountants, right? It started there, right? So
that's a good one.
And then from there to the spreadsheet, right? I feel like there's a natural evolution to how we navigate humanity. And the advent of or age of AI is part of that evolution. And I feel like we know how to evolve. We've moved from fire to cook to, an electric stove to a gas stove. I feel we know how to evolve, but we struggle with change. And it's because I feel like we build our identity around what we do. Right? I'm going to say that again. I feel like we build our identity around what we do in the workplace. And if you think about it, right, you pride yourself around your skill set. Right? When you move from one company to another, if I think of just my moves, I was prideful in that I'm able to do this, and therefore, you're making the right decision by hiring me, right? And there's a sense of ego associated to it, right? So now, if I'm coming into your team and as a process engineer to say let's understand exactly what's taking place in the work and how you deliver work, we're going to bring AI in as part of our as part of our business intelligence optimization, and making ourselves a much more digitally savvy organization. We're going to bring AI into it. And as part of that, the job has to change, right? So you're telling someone that has built his life around doing X, Y, and Z. And now you coming in as a stranger and saying, I'm going to change the way you currently do your job. I would like to look at that. And as part of that conversation, I think we need to have what I've been referring to whenever I have these conversations is, technology as a team member. How can I view technology as a team member? You'll hear some consultants talk about the human AI partnership. I think it sounds a lot sexier, if you put it that way. If let's stay with that, right? It's a partnership between artificial intelligence and human beings. And I think we have to explore what that looks like. But the only way we do that is by actually spending time on a daily basis in prompting these platforms, right? Whether it's ChatGPT or Perplexity AI, it's we have to spend time, whether it's in our workplace or whether it's at home, on our own machines or on our phones, and invest the time in spending and figuring out what does this mean for me? What is my AI human partnership when I make dinner at night, right? What is my AI human partnership when I'm, parenting my kids? What is my AI human partnership when I'm in the workplace and I'm, concluding tasks related to my KPIs and things like that? So I believe that we have to reframe our view and the lens through which we look at, artificial intelligence. I don't think it's going to replace jobs. I think it's going to amplify how effective we are in dealing with customers and interacting with our colleagues from a project to project basis.
Okay, that's a great answer. I like that. Look, I personally believe that the purpose of the HR function, HR department, is to be a strategic partner to drive business outcomes, right? Yeah. I want us to make this more practical now, so that it makes sense for CFO to make the investment when I invest in data initiatives. want that signature now. But we all know that to get the signature from the CFO, it has to make, business sense. What do we get in return? What is the ROI for all this?
Yeah.
How do we better align the workforce skills with business goals to ensure, revenue improvement, if I can put it like that, driving growth?
Yeah. Great question. So I think the bedrock of any organization has to be a digitally and data savvy foundation.
Okay.
Without that, as part of our business strategy, I would struggle to see how a CFO is going to sign off any budget for a human capital team that's saying we need to change, or sorry, rather not that we need to change, but we need to fund this project. Or we need to bring these resources into the organization, or we need this data platform into the organization. I feel like we have to ensure that there's a bedrock of understanding that the only way we grow is to exploit our current data position and to explore new data opportunities. And from there, we develop business cases.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most practical way, and it's proving a lot of value on our end at the moment, right? Even if I think back to my time in my previous organizations, we worked on 90-day sprint plans, and we had to prove value within 90 days in order to further get access to the next tranche of funding. And I felt that helped us deliver, whether it's an MVP or whether it's our first version or moving through alpha, beta, V1 sort of phases of the product development cycle. Putting together business cases with tangible outcomes from either an ROI point of view or a value perspective. Yeah. So for me, the challenge always with human capital and putting together business cases has been around, is there a quantifiable measure that you can tie from a performance or from a revenue perspective? And it's always been a challenge, right? And rightfully so. You're comparing factual, hard, revenue-driven measures with something extremely subjective, right, around a person's performance on the job. So that's a big challenge, and I think for every organization, it's going to be unique, right? You can't take something from insurance and drop that into manufacturing and say
100%. Yeah.
One is going to work for the other.
Yes.
So I think it's up to us to really accept that we're going to fail on the journey, but it's in that failure that we begin to learn what will work. So I think that's important for us. But still sticking with the development of a business case, I feel that if we don't have that bedrock of understanding that we need to exploit our current data in order to achieve growth and explore new data opportunities, I feel like we're missing the key fundamentals of any business case that a CFO is going to sign off. So practically put, right, that business case sort of mentality around how we pursue AI and HR, that's really helped us get the signature.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. How did you perceive it? Do you mind sharing? How did you guys interpret it? How do you guys approach it?
Putting the business case together. Or
how do you approach HR? Not HR. How did you approach AI bringing AI into HR?
So how we approached that was we looked at 3 use cases, right? So firstly, we know that any employee spends between 20-25% of their time searching for information in order to get their job done, right? We've also we've correlated that information with a lot of research from the likes of Deloitte and a few other consulting companies.
Okay.
So their future of work trends reports and stuff like that they've put together, we've used some of that data to then validate, yes, employees spend between 20-25% of their time looking for information. So that's one use case, right? We then correlated that back to say, if Devaan spends 20% of his time, what does 20% of his time look like in terms of how much we're paying for Devaan's time, right? So we looked at salary information, and we then correlated that back to say, how much are we losing by virtue of people looking for information? right? And that's a measure of time saved and revenue saved. And so that's our first use case.
Did you guys get to a number?
So
I'm not asking you to show what the number is. I'm just wanting to gauge how far this went.
Yeah, so we've got to a number,
Okay.
an aggregated number. So we haven't looked at it at an individual level. We've looked at it at a departmental or at a sort of a group level to say if we're spending X amount of time, how much, what does that mean from a rands and cents point of view? So that's our first use case.
Okay.
The second use case was around recruitment.
Was the number shocking though?
Definitely. Right?
Almost gave you a heart attack.
I thought to myself, if I had a pacemaker, I would have probably had issues, right?
That's an interesting exercise though. That's a very interesting one.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact that one of the challenges in organizations is, how people use their time.
Yeah.
Right? How people use their time. And I think I like how you guys approached it in terms of people spend 25% of their time searching for information on how to do something. That's quite interesting because many times we talk about the time where people are, in the balcony smoking, outside doing something, but you are talking about actually the time spent on doing your work, but it's not so effective on how you're doing your work. That's very interesting.
So our algorithm for getting to that rands and cents, right? It doesn't look at the full day, the 8 to 5, or 9 to 5. We're looking at the amount of time that people spend physically looking for information or having conversations. So if you're looking at Teams, right, we currently in conversations with Microsoft to see how we can get hold of the information and the metadata really from conversations. So we don't know the context of the conversation, but we know the person's looking for answers around work, right? And if we can help Devaan gain access to an answer faster, that means we save the organization the amount of time, meaning that you'll get to a decision that can help someone else in the process of work get to an answer down the line, downstream, which ultimately would mean there's revenue tied to it from either a policy being paid or a claim being fulfilled or a customer experience being improved or retention of a policy and those sort of things there. Right? I think it's a fascinating use case that we're currently busy with because it's not about monitoring people's productivity. It's definitely not about that. Right? It has to be around how do we ensure that we put you in touch with the right information at the right time to get to the right answer. And that's part of our AI and HR journey, right? It's part of our digital transformation journey. It's not to ensure that HR is only efficient, but it's to ensure that the business is efficient at solving its business-related actions and activities. So that's our first use case.
Okay. We've got a bit of time for the second one, if you want to go for it.
Sure. So the second one is a bit more focused towards an internal HR function, right? It's around the recruitment activities.
Okay.
So we in conversations with a few partners and providers to help us understand how we to conduct video interviewing, right? So that's one. The other is around understanding just how we are able to screen CVs a lot better. And that's where AI and HR comes to play, right? So we are currently in the process of importing a number of CVs into our data repository. And if you remember correctly, when I spoke about those 57 use cases, right, the majority of these use cases sit along the talent acquisition value stream. So as part of the screening, one of the pain points our recruiters have said is that we've got on any given Sunday, we've got 2,000 CVs that we're currently struggling to look through. That means that someone that's, possibly the right candidate is CV 1,600. Just not getting to, just not getting there. And we sit with this backlog of untapped talent that's sitting in reams and reams of paper on a laptop. So we're looking at using artificial intelligence to screen those CVs. And what's challenging for us in this year is ridding out any bias. And so we partner with our legal team to help us understand what not what, but how do we ensure that we are ethical and responsible in the adoption of these AI models? Because we don't want to be recommending CVs like I think it's an organization in the US. I think it was publicized, but I don't want to mention the company. They recommended white males only, right? And they sifted out females because of the success of what the previous roles looked like. It was white males that were successful in the incumbent role. So we want to employ every opportunity to ensure that we can, do away with those, if there are any of those biases already riddled in the process. We want to do away with that there. Right?
I love that actually, because it speaks to solving these demographic issues.
Spot on, especially on the continent, right?
100%.
We have to deal with that.
Because it's a code, isn't it? It's. I think it's like you said, like it's this algorithm where a comma could mean white male, a semicolon could mean
yeah, absolutely,
black female, or whatever the case might be. And if you then choose to use this one, it simply means you are somewhat bypassing that system. I don't know if bypassing is the right word, but it's almost as if you're manipulating the system to say, don't give me more of this, but give me more of that. So those ethical considerations, I believe, is actually quite important to look into.
Yeah, and that's where we, the AI human partnership comes into play as well, right? It's not trusting the output wholeheartedly. It's around evaluating the output and saying, maybe I should fine tune this model a little bit more because I can see it's producing a lot of the same result consistently. And that's not the type of result that I'm looking for, right? The type of result I'm looking for is a much more diverse and inclusive recommendation that I can then shortlist. So that's part of our use case that we're looking at.
100%.
In building upon that, we're looking at also as part of the video interviewing that I spoke about earlier. It's around analyzing, facial expressions. Especially when there's so much fraud, and the pain point is really around fraud and people that blatantly lie on their resumes. Right? I actually got a CV. I got a CV. Someone sent a CV over to me. Devaan, please have a look into this and see if it's generated by AI.
Yeah.
I looked at it, and under the key competencies, like the introduction of that section said, as an AI model, I don't possess any core competencies and skills, but looking at role X, I'm not going to call out the role, but looking at, let's say it was a data analyst role.
Okay.
So the output read that and said, as a data analyst, these are the competencies you want to highlight that you are important, or that you are highly skilled in. And it listed it, and I was like, guys, I love the skill set, right? I love the fact that this candidate used an AI model to generate a CV based on a role that he or she was applying for.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a conversation with this person, but what this person sent over was incorrect, because you can see that it was artificially generated.
Okay, I get you.
But we have to start thinking differently about the talent that we're bringing in, right?
Yeah,
you can't fault someone for using an AI model to produce a CV or to customize their CV to a particular role. You want to be using that because that person will then think about, how can I apply an AI model to an underwriting rule? How can I apply an AI model to maybe a banking challenge that they have, right? Or
100%.
to some manufacturing challenge, right? To flag risks from along this mining activity or something of that nature, right? So I think that it's important that we really look at the mindset that we bring into the organization.
Okay, that's quite key.
Yeah.
Earlier on, you talked about not just taking the data as is. We still need to possibly have a look at it, question it, and all this type of things to determine, or to test for quality and accuracy and all this type of things. And now you're talking about this candidate who sent through a CV and stuff, and you can pick up those gaps.
Yeah.
I really believe the way to sum that up is quality, right? Ensuring data quality at the end of the day. And my question to you is, how are you approaching that in your space? How are you approaching and ensuring data quality?
It's a big challenge.
Okay.
So it's one of the very first things. I think, our data journey is not just over the last 18, 24 months. Our data journey really from a data and HR journey, as I'm referring to specifically. It started just soon after I joined Santam. And, we're putting together an Exco report just around what the landscape of our people look like. And it will be one of the first of its kind for the organization. So we started looking at, profit per employee ratios and things of that nature, which generally organizations use in order to reflect how productive their people are. It's like how much profit are we turning over how many employees we have, and let's use that as a ratio for how productive our employees are. And as soon as we started interrogating that, we began to realize that the quality of our data, and this is back in 2019, the quality of our data needs to be looked into. So we've started, and that's how long our engineering of our data journey has come. Right? It's let's get our data out of success factors into a structured and mature data warehouse. And we're modeling some algorithms on that at the moment to ensure that we can structure the information. And if it's just headcount, let's get headcount structured. Right? And from there, let's move on into what type of courses are our employees completing, and then getting that into a clean set. Right? I spoke earlier about creating a data dictionary.
Yes.
I think that's vitally important because people come and go. But it's important that as people come and go, they understand what data they have to work with in order to ensure that the roadmap still achieves its milestones. So the data dictionary is extremely important because it will help people interpret what they're looking at in a very consistent way. And that's across every vertical, across human capital, but also I think we spoke about it earlier, around once we have that clean data set, we can then correlate that back to performance. And not just performance at an individual or a department level, but also at a business point of view. And that makes that profit per employee ratio, that makes it a lot more robust as opposed to just saying we've generated, each employee generates, 30% of the organization's
100%.
revenue.
Okay.
Or 3% of the organization's
And
revenue.
I'm so glad you're talking about that because I wanted to ask you a question around the types of analytics when it comes to the maturity curve, the data maturity. I appreciate the fact that you guys seem to be doing a lot of diagnostic analytics and all this type of things. But are you at a stage where you're finding that it's easy to do more of predictive?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Our journey of cleansing and ensuring the data quality has come from 2019, so that's 5-6 years.
Okay.
For 5 years.
Okay.
So we're not at the point where we can model the data predictively because the amount of triaging steps that we have to go through in order to ensure our data is clean, it's just been a lot more daunting and a lot more challenging than we initially thought. So what we've been doing from a predictive point of view, we've been conducting regression analysis models on our data to ensure that we are able to take a slice of the information at a point in time and then conduct our regression analysis to then say, these are the... So let's take a leadership development program as an example. So if Devaan has gone on this Harvard Business School program, he's gone on this Singularity University program, and he's completed his academic studies, what type of courses would he most likely want to go on in the future if we've invested in these programs for him over the past? And that regression model might predict that Devaan might want to go on one-on-one coaching for 6 months. Because looking at his career profile and his career ambition, he wants to be promoted into, HR exec role in 3 years, as an example, right? So that one-on-one coaching would then be a recommendation as part of that predictive model to then say, he'll go into that. The next one around career mobility. So we've split it out from development through to career mobility, through to job enrichment. And we said, what would, if this is what Devaan has been on over the last, 24 months, of those courses, what would that look like from a career mobility perspective?
Yeah.
So, as part of his enrichment, he'd need to be seconded to this role here. Job shadow his line manager for X amount of period,
100%,
right?
100%.
Pitch at Exco, go to board cycle meetings, go to a HRRC meeting, remuneration council conversation. And it's all these experiences that what we believe our regression model would highlight for each and every single employee, not just at a senior management level, but also at a middle manager, or if you're on a specialist track, at a specialist or a specialist, principal specialist.
Yes,
or
yes.
even at the grassroots level, right, at our employee, at the individual contribution level. That regardless of what we've invested in from a development perspective, that the talent management regression model would then give out aspects for Devaan to be developed, to be rotated, to be enriched across his entire talent management framework. So that's what we're playing around with at the moment.
Okay.
We're at no point able to provide the full vector of that regression
It's
model.
work in progress.
But it's a work in progress.
Okay,
Yeah.
100%. Let's bring a case study to the table.
Hmm.
You are heading a sales function, right?
Hey?
You are heading a sales function.
Okay.
This is the case study.
Yes.
You're responsible for the call center,
Mm-hmm.
which has 15 sales managers.
Yeah.
You have to ensure that recruitment happens. You bring in about 2,000 sales agents at the beginning of the year. By the 12th month, you've lost 1.8. You're only left with 200. How would you fix it? Where would you start? How would you approach it? From a data and AI.
Of course. No, 100%. 100%,
Yeah.
yeah. Geez, wait. So let's start the case study from over.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I've
Okay, no, 100%.
understood
100%.
every variable that you're
No,
giving.
it's fine. It's not a complicated one.
No,
all
100%.
you are responsible for, you are the head of distribution. Let's call you head of distribution.
Yeah.
Head of distribution / head of sales.
Yeah.
You've got a team of about 15 sales managers
Yeah.
that are responsible for driving this call center environment.
Mm-hmm.
You have to recruit new financial advisors, sales consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Every year you bring in about 2,000 of these guys. But by the 12th month, you've lost about 1.8, only left with 200. How would you use data and AI to fix that problem?
So I think that where I would start is I would use a data and AI model.
Okay.
Those are actually two different things, right? First and foremost, I'd want to understand exactly what my data looks like. Right? I'd want a dashboard to understand exactly where I'm losing, where I'm burning through cash.
Yeah.
As if, because I'm left with 200.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like there's a recruitment problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's there's issues around possibly performance monitoring. There's issues around succession planning, because you want to bring someone that you can take on a journey.
Of course.
There's an issue around retention, obviously. So there's different various issues that we're dealing with here.
Yeah. So I think that dashboard is definitely going to give me a sort of a measure of utilization, right? Who's being utilized at what level? Right?
Okay.
So I'd want to understand, because that's going to give me understanding of utilization. Second to that, so I think we bring in the wrong quality. I think it was financial advisors, as you mentioned, right?
Okay.
2,000.
Yeah. Sales consultants.
Sales consultants. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we bring in the wrong type of person, right?
But how will we know? What measures are we going to follow to assess whether it's the right person or wrong person?
100%. So that's where I feel like the AI models will be able to help us, right? We'll be able to use that in order to flag where this person is, ill-suited for the job, or where person X is highly suited for the job, right?
Okay.
I feel like the AI model will also be able to help us in giving the right, because salespeople are after the money, right? Financial advisors come and go, right? They move from one to another. Or sales consultants move wherever there's 10 Rand more than the next door, they're going to go to the next door. So in almost in a real-time basis to help reward our sales advisors or sales consultants, right? So I would want to use an AI model to ensure that we can, have a dynamic reward system. So I would say, those are two things on the inputs, and also on the reward aspect on the output as well, right? I would want to use it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a nice one, right? I feel like we need to brainstorm on
There's
this
a bit
one.
more on there, yeah. There is
Yeah.
definitely a bit more.
Yeah, there's definitely more that we can unpack in there. We just need to bring the right people in one room and we see how we can deal with that. Because I know for a fact it's a challenge in most businesses.
It definitely is, because everybody's seeking growth, right? I mean, South Africa's economy at the moment is growing at like 1 point something, if I'm not mistaken. So everybody is seeking out growth. Everybody wants to cut costs as well. And it's in seeking that growth, cutting costs, understanding what our people are doing. I feel like there's a big use case for artificial intelligence and this human AI partnership, rather, we spoke about earlier, to really figure out how do we better understand the data we have and how we can use that to seek out growth opportunities. If you in strategy, there's something called ambidexterity. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with it, but simply put, it means I'm able to exploit my current position of competitiveness and explore new business opportunities.
Okay.
And it's the ability of you to move between planning to learning as an organization, from strategic planning to strategic learning, and moving between those two sort of dimensions that this exploitation and exploration sort of conundrum fits into it. And many organizations, when you put strategy together, that's our blueprint, we're following that. And let's not deviate from there, because that's our strategy. We're not going to revisit our strategy. We've got it signed off. And I feel like we don't learn in executing our deliberate strategy, because there's nothing wrong with seeking a deliberate strategy. We want to grow. We want to get, sometimes cases we want to double our policyholders, right? We're just shy of 1 million, if I'm not mistaken. We want to get to 2 million. And that's our deliberate strategy. But are we looking at adjacent opportunities that come along the way as we exploit our current market position? And are we exploring new opportunities? That's, I don't know, we went off on a bit of a tangent there.
No, but I mean, that's important. That's important. And I think we're gonna delve deep into most of these concepts at the symposium in any case.
Yeah.
We'll have more time there to really engage the audience, empower HR practitioners with insights that they need to actually take the HR function forward.
Yeah.
We need to wrap up now.
Sure.
But before we do that, I would like you to share your final thoughts, with us, with our audience. It's more of a homework type of a, moment. What's our homework? What do you want HR leaders out there to start thinking about? What do you want them to start doing? So you can look into this camera and speak to them.
Sure.
Anything you want to share. Final words on, what you believe HR leaders should be thinking about, doing, considering, looking at, investing on, all those type of things. Go for it.
So I think for my closing thoughts, Themba,
Okay.
On what we have to do as human capital professionals is we need to understand what our data looks like. So we need to partner with our IT teams.
Okay.
So the CHRO and the CIO need to partner together to ensure that we gain access to our data.
Okay.
One, because of the subjectivity of the people data, I think we need some of a playground or sandbox set up as well.
Yes.
So that we can model the people information with the business information.
Okay.
All right. And we spoke earlier about the establishment of these business cases for the use cases that a CFO would want to see. I think what I didn't mention previously is I used a payback period financial analysis to forecast when we would break even for our chatbot implementation, right? And when my CFO, the previous CFO, when he looked at the analysis, he was like, I fully understand this. I'm very happy to back you. Let's have a conversation every 6 months to make sure that we have lead indicators that are informing us achieving that break-even point, right? So it was the sandbox environment that helped me get to the point where I can produce a business case that had a payback financial model locked into it, right?
Okay.
So I think that's our first. That's part of our homework, right? It's to have that IT and human capital partnership to ensure that we have access to our data.
100%.
Right? Second to that, if the data team does not reside in IT, it's a matter of partnering with the data team to ensure that we understand what our capability is, right? I mentioned earlier that we have our data strategy cuts across the data visualization, our data management, data technology, and then our people and change responsibilities. And it's, the middle piece for me is still the most important aspect. It's our data engineering, it's our data management, right? It's to partner with our data teams to ensure that we can manage, structure, clean our data so that we've got, along that data management aspect, it's structured information, it's unstructured, it's quant, it's qual, it's metadata, right? It's understanding what that looks like, and then have people constantly ensure that that's clean, right? Because we don't want to pivot off any unclean information, for lack of a better word, because that's when our data scientists, who we really pay a hefty fee to recruit and look for in the market, right? It's when they'll be able to pick up clean information and trust it and present that in a visualization, whether it's in ClickView or Power BI, or any other data visualization platform you might have. And if you don't have that, invest in a data visualization platform. Okay. That would be some of our homework as well, to go and look out for what type of data visualization platforms we'd like to use. I've used ClickView, I've used Power BI, I've used Data Robot, I've used MicroStrategy, and they all do very similar things with varying degrees of complexity, right? I remember when I was in the first round, we used MicroStrategy, and in the vehicle application finance business, it's in the West Bank cluster of the business. We put together a dynamic workforce planning application using MicroStrategy, where the contact center manager was able to pick up a workforce planning tool application on an iPad and flex the number of people working in her contact center at any point in time during the course of the day based on the volumes of applications coming in, and say, do I need 3 people or do I need 10 people? And if I have 3 people, what does that do to potential overtime at the end of the month? So it was a predictive model that we built to help manage overtime, which was the big challenge, right? That was the pain point, that there was a big overtime bill. And through the use of this dynamic workforce planning tool, we were able to reduce overtime. So an analytics platform of that nature will really help you understand how you can do workforce planning for structured environments like contact centers, right?
Okay.
And then lastly, I think I cannot understate this. Don't forget your people. Understand that when you bring artificial intelligence into the workplace and put a layer of artificial intelligence on top of your data and the information that people use, people are going to start being fearful around the change. And it's just natural. It's our human response to any fear, right? To any change, we fear. There are some consultants that call it's our primal response to fear, or to change. It's fear.
Yeah.
And I think we as people have to, as a human capital function, we need to ensure that we manage the change authentically. Because change is not there shouldn't be an end date to change. We oftentimes look at change management programs as, adoption of a new technology platform. How many people have we onboarded onto the platform, and are they using it? And if we hit a critical mass, the change program ends. That's not really a change management program, right? Or at least for the era that we're living in, it's not the change management program that we need. We need to understand that there's readiness for change that needs to be addressed. So what do I mean by that? Right? We need to ensure that we have constant conversations with our people around what's coming over the next 2 years. We're going to be bringing in AI as a co-pilot, as a GPT model or something of that nature into the business. It's going to be a human AI partnership. What does that mean for you? Let's start educating people around prompt engineering skills. So do you have a prompt engineering program that's educating your employees around, or that your employees can enroll on, to ensure they build the necessary skills to understand how they best prompt an AI model to get the output that is desirable for them, that they can use in the workplace, right? And then lastly, my last point, because I can go on this for a while, my last point is
Sure.
your partnership with legal
Yeah.
to ensure that you build ethical and responsible AI models around decision automation. You don't want AI making a decision around the bonus recommendation for someone. Right? That's someone's taking a bonus home. You don't want that person to understand that an AI model is giving me the bonus, as opposed to, is my line manager using his or her discretion based on the conversations I've had with him or her around my performance to say Devaan should be getting this type of bonus.
Yeah.
You don't want decision automation to play in that space, right?
100%.
And that's where your policies, we have to update our HR policies to ensure that it takes into account for ethical and AI and responsible deployment of artificial intelligence.
100%.
And I'm going to end there. Okay.
Devaan, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Always
It's
a
been
pleasure.
an honor to have
Absolutely.
you here. I'm
Likewise.
looking forward, man, to having you at the HR Symposium, which we're going to host here in Johannesburg.
Looking forward to it as well.
I believe it's going to be great. There you have it. That's Devaan. I hope you found value in our discussion. We're looking forward to bringing you more insights from subject matter experts. And this is the Data Podcast. My name is Themba. I'm your host. Looking forward to connecting with you again soon. Cheers for now.